What's up, guys? Crazy Black 108 here, and I'm back with another video with an old-time friend that you guys have not seen on this channel. And I mean, Chris, honestly, I don't know how long it's been since we've done a collab sort of thing on here, but
Woo, it's been some years. It's definitely been some years. What is going on, a crazy black man familia? It's your boy NGS back at it again with another video. Adam, thank you so much for having me on the channel, and it's so good to see you again, man. We need to do this more often.
I know, man, I agree. It's been a good while, but the good thing is, we stay in touch and we keep on communicating, and we both are still doing well during this whole coronavirus 2020 frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
And as I talked about very briefly on the video I uploaded from my phone the other day, Justice League the Snyder Cut was announced, and we're living and doing well, but the Justice League Snyder Cut fans are probably like they're ecstatic. Like this is what everything they wanted. I mean, where do they go from here? What happens from here? I feel like that's all the questions that people are asking. And I filmed a video a couple months back, but I have this really bad habit. I'm not sure if you have this, Chris. If you'll film something and you're like, all right, cool, I'll edit this later, and then you don't go edit it later, and by the time you want to go edit, you're like, may want to refilm that, change up my thoughts a little bit. And so that fell into that category. But I wanted to kind of talk about, before it was officially announced, how, once it did get announced, or once this day would come, which it has come now, what does this really mean going forward? Because going forward, are people, are we really going to be happy with this? Like, that's my thought. Like, I think it's a win for, the fans that want it and they want to see it, But I think for the people that have been on this hill, it has to be the better version of Justice League. That's where my main, thoughts come. It's like, is this actually going to be that, And that's just kind of where I'm kind of left off thinking. It was like, what's your thoughts when it comes to that?
Well, to answer your first question about how, you record something and you just, for whatever reason, you're not in the creative mindset to record. That's the creator's biggest problem. Like, you might think you have the greatest video that you've ever recorded, but there's just something that does not come together in the editing process, and you're just like, you just got to re-record it. That's basically it. Likewise, you might record something you think it's the worst thing in the world, and it ends up being a masterpiece. So yeah, I feel you on that, man. Many a times I've just recorded stuff, gotten 10 minutes in, and I'm just like, yeah, scrap it. But this whole situation about the Snyder Cut, yeah, there's honestly a lot to unpack. And full disclosure, for those who are watching, both Adam and I have talked about in length in our private chats about our thoughts on the overall process, because it's not just them coming out with another version of Justice League. It's actually much deeper. And the fact that this movie is being released, two and a half, three and a half years after the original, that's just astonishing. So, I mean, if you wanted to get my preliminary thoughts out of the way, first things first, I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic because hopefully this means the internet will be quiet for a change. Because if anyone has followed anything WB related, it doesn't even have to be superhero. There were all these people just spamming, release the Snyder Cut on every single post. It went way beyond the levels of regular fandom. But, we're just going to leave it at that because you know how fandom can get. On the one hand, I'm excited for them. I'm happy that they get to see this true vision of the movie. But on the other, I'm kind of perplexed because just the manner in which it's being released is so confusing. It'd be one thing if, okay, so you know what? In order to properly illustrate it, we have to really go back and bring people up to speed about the Snyder Cut, how it came to be, right? So during production of Justice League, it was pretty infamous for the fact that WB had been sticking their fingers in production all the way dating back to when they started shooting. There was a big reaction to Batman vs. Superman's critical response, and that kind of frightened WB when they saw that the movie didn't hit $1 billion. So they kind of started to do a retool of Justice League on the fly. So they started doing things that they thought the audiences would be more receptive to, right? So that happened all throughout the process of the film. We got to early 2017, and apparently, according to a lot of people involved in the production, the movie was not in a showable state to top brass. They saw it, they hated it, they didn't like it. So they brought in Joss Whedon. This also happened to coincide with the tragic suicide of Snyder's daughter, which is just awful and terrible, and no one should ever have to go through that during the production of anything. All right. But Joss Whedon came in. He reshot a lot of the movie. He still kept the core essence of what it was supposedly, and that's the film that we have in theaters. It's a hodgepodge Frankenstein abomination of one part Joss Whedon, one part Zack Snyder, and then way too much WB notes and meddling and interference, right? So on the one hand, I'm excited that Zack Snyder's true vision of the movie will finally be realized, because from what I've seen, it does seem like it's a very different film. But on the other end of the spectrum, in terms of filmmaking and just everything that goes into it, like, you can speak on this greatly considering you are involved in production of film and all that. Let's just talk about the notion of a Snyder Cut even existing. Like, before all this happened, did you believe that a Snyder Cut was actually a thing?
So the funny thing was is that I remember at first, because when Justice League was released, we had a free screening on my campus at our little campus theater for the film. So I saw it, and I was like, for free? Cool, whatever. I was like, it's fun, it's fine. It was short, but I'm like, whatever, I mean, that was my general thoughts. And I saw all these, like, release the Snyder Cut. People were like, this is not the film he wanted. And I at first was like, well, guys, there's always some meddling and stuff, but I'm pretty sure this is his version. But then as I started reading more about it, I'm like, okay, this is probably different than what Zack Snyder originally wanted. And then I thought, maybe there's a cut of the film, but I was like, if there's not a finished cut. And then there was like, the reports from different actors saying, oh, I've seen the Snyder Cut, it's so much better, da, da, da. And, I was like, I wanted to believe them, but I also was like, if it was a full finished Snyder Cut, I just don't believe that they would have not released it. I really was like, I don't believe they would have released it on the Blu-ray, because Warner Brothers, up until that point, every home video release, except for Man of Steel, had a director's cut, in a sense. Either, Batman vs. Superman had a director's cut, or Suicide Squad had an extended cut. Like, so I was like, thought that was just like their marketing gimmick for home video release to make people buy the film. But then Justice League didn't have it. I was like, okay. But as time progressed, I was like, well, maybe there's some truth to this. And when it got to the point where Zack Snyder was openly talking about it existing all the time, I was like, okay, I think that this actually does exist in some shape or form, but I was like, I don't think it's a full finished thing. And I want to say, not as like to kind of like poke the bear, but yesterday or 2 days ago's announcement of it actually clarified that there isn't a finished cut of the film. They have every facet of post-production still has to get done, which I'll get into a funny part with that, is that they're bringing back in the original editor. Okay, they're doing visual effects, they're doing a sound mix, and they're doing more scoring. That's 4 major things to still get done throughout post-production. It's going to take place over the course of the rest of this year, which also includes like some ADR, which is additional dialogue replacement, and there's rumor to be some potential reshoots. Which to me, wow. I laugh because I go, if they're doing reshoots, it's almost like it's not reshoots. They're finishing shooting what wasn't shot,
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's just the case. But either way, I'm like, that means there was never a full Snyder Cut that you guys, and to me, it's like, I think Zack Snyder more or less is actually getting a chance to redeem the film that he was originally making one way or the other. But what I also find interesting is that when I read the Hollywood Reporter article about how they're bringing back in the original editor and stuff, to me, I laugh because, I know, okay, they're bringing in another editor. Yes, maybe Warner Brothers giving him a lot more freedom to do what he wants now, and him and the editor maybe have a better working relationship, but still, is this going to be the Snyder Cut? Because that's what I really think is going to become, like, interesting, is like, will this actually end up becoming the Snyder Cut, or is this going to end up being something different? And so, yeah, it's just, I find it really interesting that, they're getting all these facets and parts of, production pulled back together to create this over the course of the rest of 2020 for a 2021 release. But, it's just this whole notion of the Snyder Cut now, to me, I'm curious as to what it's going to turn out, because they're saying, is it going to be a 4-hour long movie, or is it going to be split into like a a 6-part or a 4-part like TV series. Um, and it's just very interesting to say the least, you know.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like when you talk about the concept of a Snyder Cut even existing, I feel like both sides were right, but they just wanted to prove why the other sides are wrong. So when you come out here and you say that, release the Snyder Cut, a cut of the movie exists. Yeah, it does exist, but it's a version that is unfinished. It's a version that is untested and it's not marketable. You can't sell that movie.
Right.
Likewise, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have people saying that, oh no, it doesn't exist, but it does. So it's like both of y'all are right. It's just that WB has the final say. And according to them, they canned that version of the movie. As of early July 2017, that version of the movie was not what they wanted the masses to see. So Zack Snyder being able to finish the movie, if you will, it's kind of strange because you would think that, like, okay, early 2017, they had already finished shooting the movie. Like, it was done. So his script, all that stuff, good to go. So how is he really going to really finish his vision if already all the stuff he has is already complete? I'm thinking, if anything, he might go back and be able to incorporate a lot of the stuff that he wanted to shoot early on, but he was told no, he couldn't. So that could be a possibility.
Right.
And the concept of it being like a 4-hour movie does fall in line with what his original 5-arc plan was. He was saying, yeah, he wants to do this, and maybe that could work. But I just feel, you know, at the end of the day, no matter how good this movie is going to be, it's going to be a jumbled mess. Like, it is just, I don't think there's so, like, first off, a 4-hour movie.
Pacing is gonna be hell. Pacing is gonna
Yeah.
be hell. I just can't. I cannot imagine a 4-hour long version of that movie being enjoyable. just, I
Like,
mean,
there was something they said that we had only seen, what, 1/4
yeah.
of
He
what
said
was
it was
out
like,
there.
yeah. He said the film that we saw was like 25% of what was his film. And I'm just like, okay.
That's a lot of footage. That's a lot of footage that you left on the editing bay. Like, it's just like, wow.
And then look at the amount of money they're putting into it. Like, it's kind of funny because at the end of the day, there's a part of me that wonders from a business standpoint, would
Mm.
they have just been better off letting him make Justice League Part 1 and Part 2?
I
Because like
mean,
at the end of the day, the money they're spending now, like, it's
like, they are, first off, they already spent a lot of money on this movie as is, and that's not even counting the reshoots that they were still shooting and working on this movie up until its release. That's why a lot of the CGI, the visual effects, looked really bad. Yeah, they had just finished them. They were rushing. They didn't finish reshoots, correct me if I'm wrong, until like late summer. So I'm talking like late September 2017, when the movie's supposed to be out in November. They didn't want
yeah.
to delay it. And there's a whole controversy with the former CEO about that. But they are going to be spending 20 to 30 million dollars on this whole entire process. That is not an insignificant amount of money. That's
Seriously.
that's like the budgets for Bloomhouse. That's like 10 movies right there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I have to wonder, is all this good money that they're spending way more good money after bad, is going to be worthwhile? Because it'd be one thing if, like, let's say, for example, they use this as a way to sell HBO Max, because it's coming out in a few weeks. Hey, we have the surprise. Here's the Snyder Cut. It's an incomplete version. It's a rough edit, but this is what it is. There you go. I can see that boosting subscription numbers, but they're waiting until it's like a year out. That's where I'm just kind of like, okay, so you want people to get hyped up to go and subscribe to a service a year from now. Like HBO Max, like, we're not talking about from a value proposition, it looks cool, but a year later, for someone to subscribe to that service, the whole reason why these services work is because they're reoccurring revenue. So yeah,
Right.
you can watch something once and then they hope that you stay subscribed multiple months. But for a lot of these people, they're probably just going to use a free trial, give it a few hits, watch it for like a week, and then unsubscribe. Wouldn't it make more sense for them to release this on digital or video,
Well,
make the most amount of money, and then put it on the streaming service? Because
we'll see. What really blows my mind is that I said to a friend a couple weeks back, I was like, what if they announced the Snyder Cut for like HBO Max? I said that people would subscribe and they could drop it on there and they would be like, oh, it's not complete. Like, you, it's like by flat what you said. But he was like, but would they benefit from that? And I was like, well, you're not wrong, because he also works in the industry, but out in L.A. And it was funny because the whole thing I was saying is like, if you're gonna make a Snyder cut, if it's gonna be like get made, like why not just release it in theaters? Like people are like, well, people will be confused. I'm like, I don't think people will be confused. I think people would just be like, oh, it's a new Justice League movie out. That's what the general masses would know. The the
Right.
the rest of the people would be like, oh, it's the Snyder cut. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And look at the amount of money they're putting into it.
That's a
Again,
lot
yeah. Again,
already.
I'm going, why aren't you releasing it in theaters? Because, like you said, people will subscribe. Like people will subscribe and then go. Like I can't see it being to their benefit
Oh wait.
overall.
I just thought of something. There's a way for them to make this work. At least for however many weeks or months they can stretch this out, if they do it episodic.
That's true. They
If
could.
they
You
could they
know,
could, like I said, hypothetically speaking, if it is 6 parts or 4 parts or however many parts, if they spread it out every other week or some shit, they can get at least 2 months out of some people, and maybe that's all they need.
I mean, actually, if they were a genius, and this is where I would, you could pull this my Lucasfilm defense tactics coming out for me right now.
Oh, here
But
we go.
in my head, what they could do is they could release a documentary starting January 2021, talking about Justice League, the Snyder Cut, and it's a documentary process, but going behind the scenes, documenting what went wrong, what everything, and it comes out every month up until October, or up until like August of 2021, in which the first episode, the first part of the Snyder Cut will come out, and then you just release
Possibly.
it, so that way you get people to stay on for the whole year,
They
and
could.
because people will want to see and be like, know the process, and the whole other thing would be like, you watch this episode, you get to see a little sneak peek at different elements from the behind the scenes stuff. Um,
That's
I
like a
guess
reverse of what they did with the Mandalorian. They did that after the fact.
yeah, after the fact, they were like, "Yo, this is lit. Hey,
Yep.
y'all want some documentaries? All right, we got you."
Right. So I want to pose this question to you because I think it's very interesting. The idea of director's cuts is not really something that's really new in Hollywood, but it's something we haven't been seeing too much of. Of course, we have Blade Runner with its multiple cuts. We have various movies that have director's cuts and all that. But they've kind of gone away recently. Albeit some people, they're very they're fine with the studios and they come to some type of understanding, or some of these directors are just given all the freedom they want, so they don't need a director's cut. I want to just like pose this question to you as someone who's like working in the film industry and all that. The idea of them, what this signifies now from an industry viewpoint. Like I had a feeling that if they were ever going to release a Snyder Cut, it would have to come when there's new management, because there's no top brass boss CEO in the world who would ever want to make himself look bad by coming out here and saying, hey, here's the Snyder Cut to the movie that we screwed up. But they have a new CEO, Fujihara. He's no longer there. They have a new head of DC Pictures. Jeff Johns and all those guys, they're no longer there. So from a business... All
Warner
right.
Brothers onto us. Warner Brothers,
Exactly.
they know. They don't want us to be great. They don't want us to succeed. They don't want us to know
Exactly.
about the Snyder Cut.
Exactly. So you have this situation where there's a bunch of new leadership. The previous CEO is no longer with the company, and then you have a new head of DC Films. What is one thing that you can do to try to win back a lot of the audience? Because the unfortunate thing about a lot of these cultists, if you will, is that they're not going away. They are. Like there's a lot of people I know who are fans of movies. I have never seen a fan base that is like this vocal to wanting something. Like I don't even think like it, and you can attest to this. There are people who want like the original cuts of the Star Wars movies, like unedited, unaltered. I've seen more people loud and vocal about the Snyder Cut than that. So
I think the Star Wars fans are going to be off. Like I love Star Wars, but oh my god, this is we'll talk about this later. But what does this mean for like fandoms and
Yeah,
industries going forward? That's where I think
exactly.
yeah.
So you have this big corporation, this conglomerate caving to the fans and what they wanted. They're getting goodwill by doing this, and they're also making the previous regime basically look like POS. That's essentially what it is. It's like, hey, yeah, what they did was wrong, but what we're giving you, this is what you need. And there is another point I wanted to talk about. I mean, we might as well just wrap this up right here since we're talking about old regimes, new regimes, the direction of DC on film. Because I'm sure you've noticed this, but by the time this thing comes out, this movie is going to be in a really awkward situation because you're going to have this relic of a previous DC era releasing the same year as something new, which is Robert Pattinson and his Batman movie. So you're going to have two Batmen of different universes on the screen at the same time.
Well, I think I'll touch base on that here first because that's what gets me like the most, like I think deep sigh of like just pain.
No direction.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like it's kind of a tired thing to say at this point, but it still is true. Everyone loves Kevin Feige because when he was finally given full control around after Civil War-ish period, pretty much like, Kevin Feige is keeping things in line and pretty tight and, going forward. And you're, for the most part, even when you like disagree, you're kind of like, I can't blame you. But, and so that's what's been nice about him is everyone wants a Kevin Feige. DC, it's just like, at this point, since Warner Bros. Likes throwing money at things that may or may not work out to their best benefit, can we just do like a Crisis on Infinite Earths movie or something? And you take what you want. Just write that script to keep the actors and the characters you want and then scrap everything else so you have a new break-off point. Because that's what I thought. I was hoping that was what the Flash movie was going to be. Where they're going to do like Flashpoint. I was like, do it, and split it off. And Ben Affleck is gone, and Robert Pattinson's in, and please keep Henry Cavill, Lord. We only ask for one thing at night. Please keep Henry Cavill, and Henry Cavill's in, and this is gone. And it's like because at least in terms of like where DC goes from here, I just keep on wanting to say. So wait. What's the universe? What's the timeline? Canon is not that important of a thing to some extent. But when you're making a cinematic universe that's supposed to intertwine and connect and you want to do the Marvel, your canon matters, bro. Like that does matter. It's not like Star Wars where it's like, well, not everybody watches the TV show, not everybody reads this book, and not everyone knows what happens inside random book A, B, or C. Fine. I can be somewhat okay with you contradicting some things. But with the films, you're having all the films contradict each other. Where are we going? Like Wonder Woman 2, like what's happening there? Like, is it going to actually pertain to Wonder Woman 1? Because that's the other thing I've been wondering. Like, DC is just, it's weird, period, point blank. Like, I just don't know what their plans are with that. So whatever this film means, if it does super well and they love it and they decide they want to push forward that way, I guess. But the only positive that I see coming out of this in terms of a universe-wise sort of thing is if it gets us a Man of Steel 2, and that's it.
That's honestly the dream. That's all we can hope for. But yeah, you're 100% right. The problem with DC and why people don't have confidence in it is that DC has devolved the brand into a point where it's just like, we'll just take what we can get if it's good. You know what I'm saying? Like the bar has been set so low that they'll forego a shared cinematic universe for just getting good standalone movies. So for them, it's like, okay, if we can get a Joker movie, that's great. Or a random Wonder Woman movie that's good, that's okay. But to me, I feel like you're losing out on so much more because these characters are not meant to be just standalone.
Yeah.
They have standalone stories in the comics, but that's not what they were created to be. They're created to share the space with everybody and have great buildup. And there's a reason why it's called the Justice League, and if this does well, you got to wonder. That's going to throw a wrench in all the plans because this thing isn't going to be done until next year. Okay. So they already have movies that are in development that they're currently writing. And, obviously with the worldwide situation right now, things have been slowed down, but they already have a Wonder Woman movie that's in the can. You know, Aquaman has been greenlit, so they're probably getting the scripts ready for that. You know, like a lot of these other movies, like Shazam 2 is probably going to start shooting sometime soon-ish, depending on things. And like they have a lot of
Suicide
things happening.
Squad,
Yeah,
or
Suicide
sorry,
Squad,
the
the
Suicide
Suicide
Squad.
Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad and its sequel, Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, or I'm sorry, Harley Birds of Prey, the one fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
I
That's
saw that today at Walmart, and I was like, I'm not.
again, see that it just illustrates another problem. That movie is a relic from a lost time in the DC era. A Harley Quinn movie should have done better than what it did, but a lot of people associated Harley Quinn and that type of aesthetic with Suicide Squad, and they were like, "Okay, I saw this once. I don't really need to see that again." So by the time all this stuff is situated, we're gonna have just Zack Snyder's Justice League, Robert Pattinson's Batman. We're probably gonna have I don't know what's coming out in 2021. The Suicide Squad. You could have all these other movies that they're gonna be so different. They could potentially be good, but they're all conflicting. There's no consistent narrative vision. Like you could have different movies in a universe that tell different stories and have it be coherent. Guardians of the Galaxy and The Winter Soldier, two completely different movies, came out in the same year. They serve a greater purpose. You know, Guardians introduced us to the cosmic side of thing with Thanos, Winter Soldier, and what that did. You know, with the leading up into the Sokovia Accords and all that stuff, and the government and all that is a lot. You know,
The only thing that, from what if I'm remembering correctly, it could work to their advantage is that I don't think any of these other films that have come out since Justice League mention by name Steppenwolf or any of the stuff that happens in the film per se, besides the time they all like came together. That's all it's kind of known as.
Yeah, true.
And if that's the case,
well, to be fair, there's only been one movie technically that has come out post Justice League, and that was Aquaman. And even then, it's just kind of like,
isn't Shazam post Justice League?
It is, but they don't talk about anything that happens in outside. The only connection with that universe is just the fact that Batman and Superman are in it. And even then, it's not like it's Ben Affleck Batman or Henry Cavill Superman. You know?
Well, the suit is Henry Cavill, though, at the end, at
least. It is. But to be fair, you could just be like, oh, well, we just like that design. So
that's true.
It can stretch it.
That's true. So, I mean, yes, that's interesting in terms of, like, the universe-wise there. And then if we go back to the question you had about, like, the what does it mean for, like, the industry and director's cuts and things like that, you know, I was talking with one of my friends about this last night, I think it was. And for me, I just feel like it's multiple layers where this is a win for directors getting to see, you know, their vision through. It's nice to see companies take a step back. And, you know, if we're taking it at face value and not going more conspiracy theory into it, then that's what it is, and that's nice. And that is a good thing to see a studio for once doing. However, my thing with, like, Snyder, at least, is, and one of my friends pointed this out to me, is a lot of his films have director's cuts. Everything from Watchmen to even Sucker Punch, I think.
Sucker Punch.
300. Batman vs. Superman. And now Justice League. Man of Steel being the outlier, I guess.
I think, did his Dawn of the Dead have a
director's cut? Dawn of the Dead has a director's cut, too.
It does? Oh, wow.
So I'm sitting here going, like, at what point is it a director's cut and the studio is interfering, or you don't know what vision you want and you want to refine your thoughts after the mass audience has seen it? Because in a sense, then you operate as a filmmaker that wants to appease a certain audience, which is okay, I guess. But then to me, it defeats the purpose of a director's cut, because it's meant to be what you want to be.
Yeah.
And so that's where, for me, I'm just kind of like, I just don't know. And, you know, when it comes to, like, the studio itself and what this means going forward, I'm more worried about the fans and how they're going to handle things going forward when they don't like something, you know? That's what's more scary to me. Because, you know, I used to say to some people in the original video I recorded too, I talked about there being some precedents for a for a director's cut of a DC film with Warner Brothers because of Superman 2. Superman 2 has, the Richard Donner cut,
True.
which is arguably so, from what I remember hearing, at least in terms of like the fan consensus, the better version of Superman 2 than what we got released in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And that cut didn't come out to like what, Superman Returns time?
Yeah, like almost 30 years.
Yeah. So I mean, so the Snyder Cut, they did that in 3 years time. I mean,
Yep.
good for them, I guess. But it's one of those things where it's like, the Superman 2 effect. Well, actually, I think some people have like get into like the canon, like, well, you actually go Superman 2, Superman Returns.
Yeah.
3 and 4 are part of the original timeline and stuff. I'm like,
Yep.
all right.
That's when it starts. You pick it. It's gotten to the point where we're entering very dangerous territory, where it could devolve into the X-Men timeline, where some movies are canon, but some aren't. Just think, like I always tell this to people, just think about how confusing the X-Men timeline is when a good chunk of the movies are no longer rendered canon.
That's true.
And they're all within the span of 20 years, less than 20 years. That you don't want that in a universe. You don't. And if you want to do some type of time-changing, warping flashpoint, have it make sense in the context of the movies. Keep it like this. Don't go like this and then expect Flashpoint to bring us back here.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, at this point, my only thought just goes to like, Flashpoint is going. I mean, in a sense, I'm like, at this point, yeah, use it to bring it back there, because I don't know what other choice you have, or besides
Rebooting.
besides doing a full reboot. But the only issue for me with full reboot is that you have such good actors for particular characters that it's like, I don't know if you pull them back in, after a reboot. Like, because I really, my sacrificial lamb, I don't want to be Henry Cavill. Like,
Yeah.
I just, it's just like, damn, we were this close. We were this close. Like, Man of Steel 1 was like, that was fun. That was pretty decent. I enjoyed that. It wasn't the best, but it was good. It's a good start. Let's see where we go. And Man of Steel 2, and I was like, awesome. And then come out of Comic-Con, guess what? Batman versus Superman. I'm like, you bastard.
They straight up, they thought they was slick too. They just cut the lights, put the logo, and they was out. They no questions asked. They really thought.
That's what they want us. That's how they want us to react. But in terms of like the studio, I don't know if it would necessarily mean a big change with that, because I think, and maybe this is my approach, but at least when I'm working with other creatives and making like films, I don't like having too much control, because I like being able to have the control, but I try not to execute it on people. Like if I'm working with you and you're my editor, I'm telling you what my vision is for it. And
Right.
If we will work around stuff, and I think at the end of the day, like if there's a thought where it's like, I want it to be a certain way, cool, we'll talk and hash it out. And at the end of the day, we come to the decision of a mixture of our ideas, cool. But that's why I think most of the better, and not to talk, I'm not saying that Snyder isn't a good director, but the better collaborators, I would say, end up working like that. But of course, it does get different when you collaborate well between you and I, but then I don't have the producer power. That's one of those above me going, no to you, you do this. And you're like, okay, I'll do that. I'm sorry, Adam, I can't do that, And so that's just one of the things where I will be curious to see how this all ends up working out, because I wonder if we'll be sitting here in a year talking about it, and it will be a thing of like, people still don't like it, maybe, or it's not as good as they thought, and they go, well, Warner Brothers maybe messed with it again. This isn't a true Snyder Cut. And I'll just be like,
at least the true is gonna be it's like Sheen's Snyder Cut. That's what it's gonna be.
I'm just gonna be like, damn. And then they'll release a home video, and it'll be the Snyder Cut Justice League Extended Edition.
Oh God! And it's 6 hours. That's 3 movies right there. 6 hours.
Right, but I think to go to the thing that we were talking about earlier, so that maybe we can get closer to wrapping up stuff, is in terms of what does this mean for pop culture and films and fan campaigns and things like that. I want to say, I won't preface it by saying I think it's awesome that bigger corporations and businesses are willing to listen to the fans' feedback when it is in a sense warranted, or they're willing to listen to the fans and give the fans what they want to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is it's nice that, as a fan, there have been opportunities where, like I can think back to when we were younger and, Kim Possible was supposed to end with the movie So the Drama. But the fans' love for it was so high, I said, okay, we'll go do a season 4. And season 4 was pretty good still. And, they did that, but then they're done. It's nice when you have campaigns that can work like that. And so I'm happy for the Snyder fans that they're getting this opportunity to get the film they want. But what I'm scared about is at what point is it going to get to where, like, people go, oh, I can hound these people and hound these people and hound these people and hound these people in death threats, and I can insult other people online, I can bully other people into my idea and try to force my hand with this, that if that becomes a new norm. Because honestly, I could see the Star Wars fans seeing this happen and being like, all right, well, give us the originals of the original trilogy finally, or like do you actually see a side effect of this with Rise of Skywalker? There's a whole section of the fandom that believes there's a JJ cut.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And there's not. Like, the editors have gone on record saying it. It's not like it's the Snyder Cut where the editors are kind of like, not really. Da, 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 da. No, his best friend has gone on record saying it. The editors gone on record saying it. They've also been like, we were crunched down to the wire to get the film finished in the first place. Like, so the imagine that there's another cut of the film, there just isn't, which is unfortunate. But
yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, just to bring it back a bit, I think first in general, DC should just do a better job vetting their directors and their talent and everything if they're trying to create a cohesive universe. Because I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're trying to make a cinematic universe featuring comic book characters from their own universe, it has to be producer driven. It cannot be director driven. Directors can play in the producer's playground, but you need someone who can just step back and analyze everything and have a clear cut path where we're going. Zack Snyder was the de facto architect of the DC universe. That's why if you look at a lot of the early stuff for Wonder Woman and Aquaman that we saw in the movie, it was so much darker and bleaker by comparison to what Patty Jenkins and James Wan gave us. So they need to do a better job doing that. And so far, so good. It seems like they're off to a better start. Now, that being said, to your comment about fandom, and yeah, this is honestly where it gets I'm kind of mixed. Like, on the one hand, yes, I do like how they are listening to the fans and they're giving the fans what they want. But on some level, I think you'll agree with this as a creator, sometimes you just got to stick to your guns and release your vision. Like, I know a lot of people are going to take this out of context and say, oh, so that means you defend all the bad things happening. No, I'm not saying that. But for every situation like this, like for every Dragon Ball evolution that you have, right? For every movie that's an artistic vision that's bad, you have something that is really good, like
right.
Captain America, Winter Soldier, like, Cowboy Bebop, like a lot of things out there. It doesn't even have to just be, adaptation wise. So you can't sit here and say, oh, well, they should just do exactly what the fans want, because I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be the first person to admit it. Sometimes the fans just be demanding the wildest and crazy things. And we've seen what happens when companies fold and they give fans what they want. Like the CW is a prime example of that. They've given you things that you wanted to see from DC, like Flashpoint. They've given you all those story arcs, but they don't make an impact. Why? Because they're not handled as well as they should.
Right.
So you kind of got to be careful when you just say, oh, we need to have fans working on this, fans working on that, because some of the best stuff that we've gotten here recently has, it's come from people who love the products, but they're not like comic book writers. And they're not people who grew up instinctively like, okay, I just want to do this. They're people who are talented first and foremost. James Wan, I don't think anyone ever looked in a room and said, okay, we need an Aquaman movie. Who are we going to get? I don't think anyone would ever look at James Wan, but he was able to give us something that is just so out there and ridiculous. And like, whatever you think about Aquaman, like I thought it was a lot of fun. It's not the most well-written movie out there, but in terms of like the scale and the scope and just the pure wackiness of a comic book, that thing excels, So I think sometimes fans, we suffer from being a bit too entitled, where we just demand all these things. And if we don't get it, it's not great. And if we do get it, it's like, oh, it's not exactly what I wanted to an extent. Like there's some levels and you have to, like, I'm putting the bunny ear quotations on it. I think people just need to be a bit more understanding of the creative process and that it's not as black and white as, okay, here are the comics, go.
Right. And exactly. And it's one of those things that I think too often it's easy to go see something that you're really passionate about and see a film about it or see a continuation of the series and have all these expectations that you've built up over the past year or whatever, and it not equate to that. That does suck. But the thing is, fans need to be able to take a step back and go, this isn't what I wanted, but is it not good? And if it's not what I want, but it's good, then you have to learn how to accept that that's what happened. That's the story that was told, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then there are times where, is this what I wanted? No. Is it not good? Yes, it's not good. So it's like you can understand both sides of it. Like sometimes there are cases like that, but the fan, and that's where I think it's so hard because the fandom, like that's, I think even this film, like, well, to take a step back, even with the Snyder stuff, just in general, I watched the BVS extended cut. I don't remember it very much, honestly. I don't remember it having a huge impact on me besides the fact that they fleshed some things out more. But at the end of the day, I was like, the film still suffers from the same issues it suffered from before, which was the writing, which was with Snyder and Terrio. Like,
yep.
Terrio is just going to haunt me forever, isn't he?
He's coming into all your franchises.
Oh God.
But that dude, didn't he write Argo, though?
You know,
I think
a broken clock is right twice a day.
True,
I'm kidding. I'm not insulting Chris Terrio that heavily.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, Akiva Goldsman wrote A Beautiful Mind and also wrote Batman and Robin. So there you go.
I mean, so and so it's one of those things where it's just like, you know,
Side note, I just looked up Chris Terrio on freaking Google. It still has him listed as the writer for Justice League Part 2 with an Avengers Endgame style mock-up for the poster. I'm not even kidding right now, people. My God.
Are you
just find a way to throw that up in post, but just put that on screen. It's just so funny.
Send it to me on WhatsApp, and I definitely will throw that up. Oh my gosh. And that's just the thing. It's like, you know, I think it's great that fans have opinions, and that's what makes fandom fun, and we disagree, and we can debate, and we can have conversations. I mean, as our group chat, you know, knows. But, like, I think one of my favorite things is, like, I mean, I think you may have saw this in the chat today, Chris, but I just was saying this to Trent, where I was saying to him that his opinion about something that happened in Rebels, that he hated when it came out. He now loves that moment so much, you know, between Maul and Obi-Wan. He's like, he loves that a lot. But for me, that's where I argue that, you know, as a fan, our first emotions are meant to be volatile sometimes because we have so much like attachment to it. But what's beautiful, I think, is when we finally step away from it and we look at it deeper and then we're like, yo, wait a minute, this really hits. Exactly. And it hits you on a different intellectual level that then hits you in a way that's like more, that's even sometimes I find more powerful than the way you want it to be. You know, because I always say it's like something my dad used to always say to me, you know, wanting isn't as great as having. You know, you want to see this film turn out this way and you get it and it's like, oh, okay. And like you're happy probably, but does it stick with you super well all the time? Not always. I mean, there's moments, but then, you know, there's other times where it's like, you know, there's things that you are hoping to see come out of something and it's not what you want, but what you got was so much better once you really delve yourself into it. And so I think, you know, it's just going to be an interesting thing to see the fans' reaction next year because, you know, I think one of my roommates was saying he read somewhere that the scary thing is if it's either marginally better or marginally worse, or arguably better or arguably worse.
True.
Because then the conversation will just continue to go on forever. And honestly, if that's how the fans take it, I guarantee you they'll be like, so that wasn't the actual Snyder Cut.
Like if we start seeing like the ripples and we start seeing people like not praise it the way that they thought it was in their mind, this is gonna be ugly.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. But I mean, it's interesting, and I think I think kudos to the people that really wanted this. To all the people that went out and they campaigned in a healthier way than
They
what.
put billboards up in Times Square and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Like
for all the,
I gotta say, like hats off to all the people who were able to community organize and do all this stuff, and they actually did things for charity and all that. Like y'all are cool. It's the people who just keep hounding WB on Twitter and all that. Those are the
right,
worst.
and too. Also, just something I want to say. I think it was like some big publicist magazine put out an article saying that they hid behind the fact that they were doing good deeds, like donating to like suicide charities, stuff like that. Look, anyone that's like hearing that, whether or not part of that's the case for some people, if you know what you did in your heart was with good intentions, don't feed into that. Because don't even like bother with that type of stuff. The fact that you guys are able to make this happen, that's a great thing. It's cool, and all the good things that came out of it are awesome. Don't let anyone downplay that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to seeing it. Honestly, I mean, it's not something I needed, but I will watch it and I will see what I think about it. And honestly, it's made me want to go back and watch Man of Steel and BVS, the director's cut. And I own Aquaman, but I still have not seen Aquaman.
Oh, okay.
So I want to go and watch that again. Just to kind of see what I think about the DC EU as a whole, especially when I've been so far removed from caring. Because even for me, I didn't love Justice League, but I thought it was fine. I like that there was. I'll be honest. I like that there was color. I'm sorry, Snyder fans.
Finally, like
I like that there was color.
The tones are gone.
That's just my personal preference. If I'm watching a comic book film, I want to see Superman in blue and red, and the yellow. It's just me. Red, white, and blue. I mean, I guess I don't know, but
that's
it. So, but yeah, I mean, you got anything else to say, Chris, or do you think we?
I feel like we pretty much hit all points in regards to this whole situation. I know a lot of people expected me to be more cynical on this, but I just pretty much gave my thoughts. That's how it is. Like, I'm happy for fans. I'm interested to see what the reaction is going to be from now until then and what it's going to mean going forward. I will say this much though, and I feel like everyone in the world has a pass to do this. If this comes out and it is arguably worse than Justice League and it's a waste of time, people gonna get clowned into the next dimension.
And if that happens, I almost said when that happens. If that happens, I don't feel bad per se, because the whole argument to me has been from the start is I have a really good friend of mine that's like, I didn't like Man of Steel, I really didn't like Batman vs Superman. Why do we want me to have hope in this, that this is going to be a better Justice League? And I mean, I agree. To a certain extent. I mean, I can't argue with that. That sounds pretty. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, gotta be a duck.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, no. Thank you guys for tuning in, watching. Let us know what you guys think down below. We'll be communicating with you guys. And Chris, hopefully we can do more stuff like this more often. Figure out time. Quarantine does help. A little bit. It's
most definitely.
Ways. So,
most definitely.
But yeah, it's Crazy Blackman 108 saying peace, hand out. And yeah, we'll catch you guys around later.
Peace.